Well, thanks very much for letting me speak here today. My name is Lillo Puma. I work at Walmart Canada. I've been there for about 10 years. I work in the supply chain and logistics area. I head up what we call our central services area, and inside of that, our integrated planning journey was born. And so, obviously, I wanted to start a little bit about Walmart Canada just to get some details about who we are. We're obviously part of a much bigger organization, Walmart, but I'm going to talk specifically to the Canadian portion. We have 411 stores across Canada. We're a proud employer of about 85,000 associates. We have 1.2 million customers that visit us each and every day. And why that's unique is we have 35 million people that live in Canada, so there's quite a great portion of the population that visits us each and every day. We service 94% of all Canadian cities and villages and towns, downtown urban markets, rural areas, you name it, we do it. We also have 750,000 people a day that visit our walmart.ca website. Our journey towards Omni is quite something in the last 5 years and has really taken off in a big part of our business. We, most notably, and the thing I'm most proud of, and I'll close on this, is we've raised over $300 million for charities inside of Canada since 1994. And thank you. Let's get a clap for that. You know, when I was preparing for this, my daughter said to me, what are you doing in Dallas, Daddy? And I said, well, I have to go give a presentation. And she said, well, you know, is it funny? And I said, no, it's actually the opposite of funny. It's going to be as boring as possible. So I said, I'm going to try to make a joke. And my wife said, no, don't make jokes. Your jokes are pretty bad as well. So if I laugh, work with me, build the energy in the room here. And I'm seeing some nods, so I appreciate that. Okay, let's move on. With that environment comes, the note slide doesn't match the slide. If you don't mind flipping that back for me, that'd be great. With that environment comes a great deal of opportunity. We have 2.7 billion square feet in warehouse space across our 12 facilities. That basically means we have 3 campuses across Canada that we've got lots of different opportunities that move both ambient goods, perishable goods, and of course all the other types of commodities that we sell. We move over 1 billion cartons a year. What's unique about us is our geography, as most of you know, is quite difficult. Our deliveries on average from a distribution center to our stores are well over 400 kilometers. In fact, there are a handful of stores that we travel perishable goods over 2,200 kilometers away. We make a lot of trips. We drive a great deal of distance, and that complexity comes with a great deal of cost. And so part of our integrated planning journey was to help us understand how we could find ways to save money and create the environment that our customer is looking for. So to be successful, accuracy in planning is maybe the most important thing. However, for those of you that aren't close to it, retail is anything but predictable. In fact, most people would call it random. In many respects, you wake up today and something's selling great, then you wake up tomorrow and something else is selling great. And if you're the one guy that's supposed to predict what all those people are going to buy and going to do, you don't have a lot of great days at work. And so that is the challenge and the frustration that I face each and every day. So I'm going to tell you a little story. My boss calls it the doom loop of planning. He actually made me put it on this slide, to be candid with you. It talks a little bit about retail. And just from a show of hands, how many people in the room are more on the business side than the technology side? Okay. So this will relate a little bit. And for the rest of you, I'm sorry, I'm going to bore you for a few minutes to talk about our challenges here. Walmart operates in an unconstrained environment. So what that means is our merchants are able to order goods in a variety of different ways. There is an automated replenishment system that runs each and every minute of each and every day creating orders. There are manual orders that are created by our replenishment teams who are responsible for maintaining the inventory levels at our store. There are promotional purchase orders to support our promotions and seasonal events. The stores can manually order. I think the president has this ability to click a button and order whatever he wants at any point in time as well. What that means is all of those teams can order product, and none of them relate to a finite amount of capacity that exists within our organization. And I'm seeing some nods. That relates to a few of you. We used to spend a lot of time at Walmart saying there were the groups that were out creating orders, were out to get us our supply chain guys. They're out to make sure that our lives are as difficult as possible. What we've learned in our journey is that that's the opposite of what's going on. They just don't know. They know that they need this product, and they order it. And they don't know the person beside them also needs product and is ordering some of that as well. When you add all those orders up, it creates quite an interesting scenario. So orders get created every day, and our DCs and transportation teams and our stores, which is our three most important pinch points in our network, they are going to move heaven and earth to make sure that they can move all that volume. But if they get surprised by that volume, if the daily capacity exceeds that environment, they move on to making judgments. So the presenter earlier talked about 140,000 cases, and the distribution center is set up to move 100,000 cases. That extra 40,000 cases, which in our environment is the equivalent of about 35 people, man-hours in the course of a day, that gap that our distribution centers or our stores or our trucks find, they have to fight through that. So what do? They make decisions. They decide, okay, today, of this excess that I can't ship, I'm going to take this product over here and I'm going to leave it. And I'm not doing it maliciously. I just don't have enough people, equipment, to get that product to where it needs to go. Or maybe they'll say, you know what, I don't know what to pick. I'm just going to take the first box that came to me. And so that environment of the distribution, trans, and stores team picking what product is going to get sent to stores is all done and achieved by overtime. So the distribution centers and stores bring in extra people to bring in an extra volume. Our transportation teams go to the spot market in order to buy more assets for the day in order to get that product rolling and driving that 400 kilometers to our store. And we all know that those are two very expensive portions of our business, and we're trying as much as possible to eliminate those. So what then happens? Okay, well, we wanted to send 140,000 cases out. We could only send 100,000. The very next morning, there's product left behind in our distribution center, and so our OSCA, which is, there's lots of acronyms at Walmart, OSCA is on-shelf customer availability. What that shows is that we didn't get all the products there, and that we've actually got a reduction in the levels of our inventory at the stores. And so, of course, what do the buyers do? Now, you have to understand, for those of you that have met a pure merchant, a pure buyer, their intent in life is to sell stuff. They don't care how much you have to sell, they just want to sell whatever they can. And by nature, their job is to negotiate and to bargain. And so they will negotiate with you, and they will bargain with you, and they will argue with you, and they want their product sold. So what happens when they don't see the required inventory levels of the store? They go in and they tell the replenishment teams to order more. And so you wake up the next day and the whole damn thing, pardon my language, starts over again. You now order more product than you need. The distribution centers fall farther behind. The transportation teams go to the spot market to get more trucks. We send all that product to store and they go, what am I supposed to do with it all? And these three things are a result. We get lower CSAT scores, which is our customer service scores. We bring in higher costs, of course, to all those things that I talked about. And maybe the most impactful, and something that I'll talk about a little bit throughout my presentation, is the cross-functional trust plummets. Okay, so you've got merchants, you've got buyers, they want to sell product. You didn't ship their product. They don't care why. They just don't think that you're capable of doing what you're paid to do. So they find creative ways to go around you. They find creative ways to add more inventory into the network, buy more commodities to ship to store, bring in more vendors that may or may not create new complexities for you in supply chain. If you don't have the trust, you will never be successful. And so, we talked a little bit about what our mission was. So the mission for our integrated planning journey was to get away from the doom loop. It was to make sure the doom loop doesn't happen anymore. We had to align our organization that we do in fact have constraints. And that was not an easy task, and we'll talk a little bit about how we went through that. We have to work together to find ways of taking the red bars, which are above the capacity lines, and move them into the open white spaces that are below that line. Very, very simple concept, incredibly difficult to negotiate with a cross-functional team. But luckily enough, I'm going to tell you all about how we did that here, knowing that it is not the only solution to the problem, but just as another point of reference for you in hopes that it helps you in your integrated planning journeys. Does that work? Okay, nods, I like that. That means I'm not completely off my rocker up here. No, that's a bigger nod and a smile. I'm really appreciating that. So integrated planning is the concept that we adopted. It's the terminology that we use, and it became the essence of what we were trying to drive. There are 6 goals, which is actually 5 goals that feed into one overall goal, but we like to be complicated as hell in retail, so we made the slide look this way. See, that was a joke. You're supposed to laugh there, too. There we go. So much better now. So we want to improve our outbound service levels. We obviously want to improve our labor planning because there's a lot of money spent in retail in moving a box, driving it to where it has to go, and unloading it and putting it on the store floor. And so it's definitely one of our key goals. We want to make sure that our outbound trucks are as optimized, as full, and as predictable as possible so that we can be smart in the way that we secure transportation assets. Again, remember that 400 kilometers that we drive 50 times to the moon back and forth every year. We, of course, want to improve our inbound. So if we can be more predictive of what's going out to stores, we feel better about giving our vendors a fighting chance as to what they can ship us. And last but not least, we want to get alignment in the back room of the store. The back rooms of the stores are little mini warehouses, and we have to be as mindful for them and the amount of products that they house for us as the store floors are themselves. All of that improves our customer availability. Now, you feel free in the audience to stop me as I'm going along. I'm going to have about 10 minutes at the end to do some Q&As if you want, but if anything intrigues you, I'm completely up for questions as we go. Okay, so integrated planning began in 2016, and to say that it was a difficult process would probably be the understatement of the year. The flow team was created on the heels of what we call Flow 911. Our president pulls 5-7 influential people in a room and says, all of you need to get together and figure out why I go to stores and all they complain about is flow. Oh yeah, and you with the glasses, I want you to lead it. And so that worked out well for me. So after the first month of complete panic, out came a bit of a concept. We meet consistently as a group with cross-functional leaders. We meet consistently for a point. Flow doesn't stop on certain holidays. It doesn't slow down during certain months of the year. Walmart Canada sells products year-round, and we need to make sure that we are constantly on the cadence of understanding how in which we stay in front of this particular problem we've got. We meet 1 hour a week. It's the same time every week, and we recap capacities. The intent of me telling you about all this to you is most of you in the room are probably thinking, well, it's straightforward and obvious. And that's what we thought at the beginning as well. It is straightforward and obvious. But sometimes in the straightforward and obvious is the most important part. When we don't have the calls, people don't talk. When people don't talk, they make their own decisions. When they make their own decisions, they create more randomness. And so you fall back ever so gently into that doom loop when you can't pull your teams cross-functionally into a common set of goals. And so around the table is our merchandising teams who are responsible for helping us understand what they're buying. Replenishment talks about where it's going and how much we're going to ship. Our ISD teams, there's always something going on in our network. Our tech has to bring or up or down a network. We've got to upgrade something or adjust something. You need that technology at the table. Our transportation teams, of course. Our DC operation teams, of course. And then we want our stores always telling us how we're doing, what needs to change, and what we need to add to it. And so this environment allows us to sit around a table, look at volumes, and talk about what it is that is working and isn't working. And when we look to find solutions together, it's not so the DCs can win or the trucks can win, it's so that we all win. Because what we found before our integrated planning journey is there was always one group that was screaming the loudest, and they were the ones that were winning. That doesn't help the overall business. You need to find solutions that work end to end, which is a catchphrase inside of Walmart. I'm not sure how much many of you have heard, but that's a term that we use almost for everything. It has to be considered end to end. How are we thinking about this problem collectively? Good so far? Okay, so the flow call had an incredible amount of success out of the gate. We were able to very manually pull together what we believed to be volumes. We then added in some concept of how stores wanted us to adjust things, what else the transportation teams required. The problem that we faced is we were running into issues that were taking longer to solve than the horizon of when the issue would arise. So the 140,000 case example, which I use all the time, and I use it because it's a live example. Leading into Labor Day, 140,000 cases were dropped at our high velocity distribution center, which is our Cadillac of our network. It is the most important items to us that are ambient in nature. And we had a plan of 100,000 cases for this building to work one day. The drop came in at 140,000. The distribution center had to decide what to leave behind. They left behind the front page promotion because how would they know? They're the distribution center. Boxes are all brown, so I shipped them. That was another joke that must be good. Whoa, I'm slowing down up here. Okay. Yeah, it is. That was not a good one, but thanks for laughing anyways. So the brown boxes are left behind. That vicious cycle spirals out again. So the flow call's intention was to bring us all together and understand how we needed to move faster together. So we did that. We built Excel files that helped predict. The problem with that particular scenario is the situation was created on Wednesday. The problem was coming on Friday. It took us all day Wednesday and most of Thursday to figure out exactly how to solve the problem. Now we've got this ingenious plan. We go to the systems to go to implement. They're like, yeah, you needed to put that in the software yesterday. And so the problem materialized because we couldn't prevent it. We were not able to go fast enough. So hence the 09 journey. Simply put, we were sitting down trying to figure out a way to create the framework of the software, because you have tons of freedom to build and develop as you see fit. We needed to find a way to move at the speed of retail, as we called it. And we began conceptualizing our technological solution. Simply put, there are 3 buckets. You get your statistical forecast, which is roughly 90 days out. We call that a rough cut for our labor and equipment planning. The weekly plan pulls together a view of what the original forecast was and compares it against what the softwares or the manual orders are aggregating and are leaning towards. So if we planned 100,000 in that distribution center on that day, but the software looks like it's buying towards 120 with a 2 weeks advance notice, this weekly plan, as we call it, compares the two, and it gives us that advanced warning signal. Again, we were doing it very manual, and we weren't able to move with retail speed, but we knew this had to be an essence of our journey. The last one is our store orders, our next day orders. What that basically means is our day plan says, tomorrow this is what you're going to get for sure. And as simple as that may be, it's actually a difficult number for us to pull out for all of our distribution center types. And so we knew we had to have a factor of that built inside of our overall model. There's our CFO describes this in the following way. The 90-day plan is you're planning on going on a family road trip, and you type into Google Maps, okay, I want to go from Toronto to Dallas. It's going to take me 2 days to drive there. What are the major highways I should navigate my way through? So roughly I need to know I'm steering away from this state and going through that state, and I've got a rough plan. The weekly plan is, I'm along my journey, and the software is telling me, hey, it's there's some traffic up ahead. Instead of taking this interstate, why don't you flip over to that one, and you'll be able to navigate around it. It's still busy that time of day, but you'll be able to navigate around what is intense. The one-day plan is you're driving along, and you're about to run into the person in front of you because everybody slams on the brake all at once, and your computers and your car take over and help you brake and beep at you and create advanced signals. The same sort of concept exists for us. We have a plan. We've got our journey, and then we need that activity that helps us prevent the car crash because they're inevitable. So, before '09, I talked to you a little bit about we had a rough cut of capacity. And this is where, this is where the partnership with Balaji and his team, who from the '09 environment, really helped us dig into the solve. We knew what we wanted to do. It was how we go about making it a reality and pushing the boundaries of what we were able to do. And I recognize him constantly in his support of us in our journey, and I just wanted to make sure I took the time to recognize him here as well. So before '09, we knew we had this 90-day plan. It was really beautiful. It was in Excel. The problem with Excel, as all of you know, is you can't version control. So my replan friends would come to me and say, are you sure this is the forecast you sent me? Because I have 3 other files. Which one of these was the one we were working towards? And so, simply put, the monthly plan in '09 allowed us to have a locked plan, ensuring there was versioning controls and there was visibility that was constantly available to the entire environment. I take you back to that whole trust factor. Now it wasn't some Excel file that you may or may not have gotten from it. There's a software that you can log into that says, here is our plan. Whether you like it or not, we all labored towards this 90 days out, and I can't make people. So if you want to do more than this, we have to work together in order to figure out how we get that going. Does that make sense, everybody? Okay. The next part of the plan pulls together our comparative I talked about, right? It says, how are the replenishment systems, the systems that are building and buying, how are they comparing to what we originally planned? To me, this is the most important part of the software. We take a weekly plan that shows us by day, by distribution center, by store, how much product is going to them, and we compare that to the original flow. And we compare that to our capacities. And we say to ourselves, okay, on today's the 16th, on the 25th of September, I'm seeing that I'm going to have a 35% breach. And if you remember that the slide with the charts above the line and below the line, in essence, what the weekly plan is doing for us is giving us, and I'll show you a screen slide of it, exactly how and where we move that volume around in order to anticipate that problem and navigate our way around it, if you think about the Google Maps analogy. Does that work so far? Lots of nods, so I must be getting through. I know it's incredibly exciting stuff, but I appreciate you staying with me here. The daily plan, it was funny, we were doing a presentation and the CEO said, Lillo, you can't prevent tomorrow. Like, if you know what's coming tomorrow, how can you prevent it? And I was like, actually, it makes me sound really cool at the moment, we can prevent tomorrow. There are subtle things, once you dig into the most granular level of detail in our environment, that allows us to change tomorrow by adjusting those orders going in the distribution center, which adjusts what the trucks need and it adjusts what the stores are going to take in. You can't do it manually. We tried for weeks and months. You need speed and horsepower to chunk through what is an insane amount of information in order to say, hey, you know what? Of that 140,000 cases, these 5,000, this one flavor of cracker, this one cereal from General Mills, and this one item water SKU, we don't need those as much as the other ones. Let's yank those out of today's drop. Let's move them into tomorrow's drop. Let's communicate the hell out of that to everybody, because we don't want to be untrustful. We want people to know that we're doing it for a reason, and if they want to know what we've done, they just log in the software and they can see it. And it sort of built that environment that we were looking for. I'll talk a little bit about the software itself. I think now that you've seen it demonstrated twice already, I'm not going to try to describe it in a way that anybody before me has. What I will describe is two things for me. One is the top portion of that is that chart that I showed you about what's above or below the red line. So the red bars are showing us breaches. I know the slides aren't doing it well. My TV screen's a lot clearer, so I'm going to point over here. There's a line that separates under number 1. And what that basically says is the distribution centers saw that we had more volume than we can handle, so they've labored up some overtime or brought in some part-time resources, I should say, in advance in order to help mitigate that problem. But there's still a little bit of volume above the red bar, and so that float team needs to come together to figure out how we handle that. Again, the data itself isn't rocket science. In fact, nothing I do is rocket science. I convince my daughters that it is, but it really isn't. So I heard 2 giggles, thank you. The power in this is the graphics of it all. When you're sitting down with a merchant, they don't care. They really don't. The trans team doesn't really care, the truck drivers. What they see in that flow call is red means problem, I must help. And so that graphical representation of the issue actually had more of a material impact in changing the dynamic and increasing the trust than you could imagine. And we're not a tiny organization. There's some fairly intelligent people in the room, and yet you put some visualizations up in front of them, all of a sudden that wheels are turning, the thoughts are running, and we're starting to find problems solve problems together. What else is very powerful about this slide is below that, all you can see is numbers. You can't read any of the words that are there. When you're in a very heated discussion over what items should or shouldn't be pushed or what items we should or shouldn't balance away, we were faced with a problem where we had to take it out of the room. Oh, I'll take that away. That's a good question you've got about how I move that volume. Let me come back to you tomorrow and I'll bring that. Well, by the time we come back tomorrow, you've lost them. They're on to the next problem. They think that you don't know what you're doing, and they inevitably are going to go buy more product to try to prevent how you're going to ruin their sales for them. The power of having all that data right in front of you and logically laid out like that, and if you were to log on our software, it scrolls down for 20 or 30 rows, is when you're in the room and you're having that discussion, the flow team is finding that problem together. If you have all the data at your fingertips, you're answering questions to one another, and you're solving problems in real time. And solving problems in real time is what we were missing. We could solve problems, we just needed a week to do it, and we don't have a week in retail. Does that resonate? Okay, a couple more slides. Outbound transportation, talked a little bit about this. We spent a lot of money on that. Another simple view. Hey, truck driver team, as I like to call them. Above the blue line is how many trucks you tell me are always available at your disposal. When you go above it, you have to go to the spot market. It costs you a lot of money. I'm telling you 4 days in advance. On that particular day, you're going to be 6 trucks above that. Please go ahead and secure additional transportation. I know that product is coming. We have all our source systems feeding into this. We know that volume is going to be there, as predictable as you possibly can in the retail environment. The other thing that's really interesting is once you get to that layer of the onion, what we're constantly working on is saying, well, what's the next layer of the onion? So now if I know we're 6 trucks over, is it because of the composition of those trucks? And so now we're looking at, we sell a lot of paper and water. It's fascinating how much toilet paper and water we sell in Canada. It's like everybody on earth, as you know, 1 in 35 people travel to a Walmart every week, and I think each and every one of them buys 2 cases of water and 2 packs of toilet paper. For what, I have no idea, but there's an insane amount of it. What that tells us is when you have high concentrations of paper and water on a particular day, you cube out and weight out faster, and so those trucks need to be more agile and need to have different configurations or more of them. And so these layers of the onion are where we're starting to unlock all the real potential in this software. Last but not least, we don't do enough for our stores. This is a simple chart, but if you could imagine for our 20 years of existence, we were unable to tell a store exactly how many boxes was coming to them next week. And so they just had a team of people ready to accept boxes regardless of when it was coming to them. The software provides them a very detailed view of saying, I know you've got this much labor set up, here's how much product we're shipping to you. Simple, and part of our journey needs to be to expand this further, but definitely a key component for us. To say that data is everything in implementation like this, again, it doesn't do it justice. So I'm moving away now from parts of the actual solution to a little bit about some of the key learnings that we've got throughout it. Again, in hopes that it helps you. I wish I'd known some of this stuff 2 or 3 years ago. We could have moved at a little more pace. What we quickly realized when we're pulling this together is to answer all these questions, you need lots of data. We have lots of data at Walmart. We have an insane amount of data, to be honest with you. I came from a much smaller organization inside of Canada before I came to Walmart, and I was shocked how they knew everything, right down to the 10-minute interval on sales. It was beyond amazing. The problem is there's so few people that actually know where that data is and how it's comprised and what are the real business rules behind it. Is it a 10 p.m. pull of sales or is it a 11 p.m. pull because it's Mountain Standard Time on this part of the world and Central of it? Oh, I don't actually know that. And so when we embarked on our journey, we had a very aggressive, would you say? Yeah, he's nodding. Apologies. Like, yeah, it was super aggressive. 5-month implementation plan. And although we probably could have done it within that time frame, we underestimated just how little us as business owners and our ISD internal departments knew about where our data was. And so we were bogged down for about a 3-week period in order to understand how the siloed systems worked, where the latency of all the data was, just how inaccurate it was in so many ways. And so if you take a few things away from my presentation, one would be data is something that you cannot underestimate. The other thing I'll share with you is manual data is okay. We have lots of processes that are driven by manual behaviors. And so if you're going to maintain a manual spreadsheet, that's totally fine. The software can consume it, do a great job with it. Just don't forget how important it is to keep it updated. Your benefits will dwindle as quickly as you gain them if you don't properly manage that manual data. Key points. There was a really the benefit of working inside of Walmart Canada is that you can draw from Walmart International, which is in 27 different countries, and there's a lot of more people that you can draw from. There's 27 others of me out there. And so I can get on a call and ask questions to my counterparts and peers throughout the globe about how they're doing certain things. And one of them gave me the best piece of advice. And so the second thing I want you to remember from my presentation is when you're embarking on any bit of a project of this scope, scale, or size, when you're implementing an integrated journey environment, a SME council is maybe the most important thing. Call it what you will in whatever version that works in your own organization. The SME council was a group of my peers, not just any peers. You all know what I'm going to be talking about. It's those people inside of the organization that are so influential. They've been around for so many years. They know where all the details in that business unit are, and they know how to get stuff done. Their network allows them to really accelerate at pace. They might not be exactly the right role in that org chart you're trying to build before you implement this software, but you want those influential people that are your peers across the organization. The SME Council supported us with communication up and down the network. You want to get your executives on side. The easiest way is to get that person that he or she trusts the most and get them bought into the program early. We also had obvious change managers and periodic communication with early training. Those are all the things that all of you are going to think about, so I'm not going to bore you with those particular points. The last presentation, I almost felt like we had cut slides from one another, but basically there were some operating principles there. I want to share with you a few of the operating principles that we had, not to repeat it, but again, I think it's the fourth most important thing. The SME Council created these operating principles that would give freedom to the design teams in order to create within that framework. These principles, they're going to come up, you're going to go like, come on, man, seriously, came all the way here to tell me about this? But they are so simple, yet they are so specific that every time we were trying to design something, we would go back to the operating principles to make sure that what we call the golden rules, as we called them, were never broken. And so, adjust the volume before the network. I'm only going to describe a couple. There's 10 on the screen, but I promise I won't go through all of them. You adjust the network before the volume because in that whole trust component, if you want to build trust with your partners, you say to them, I'm doing everything I can before I'm asking you to help me. You follow me? A simple concept that as you can go and develop software you can forget about, and if you design it around that, people are going to open it up and say, oh, they've gone about their own way, try to save money again. We're here to drive sales, and all they're trying to do is save money. We plan to 95% because, well, retail is unpredictable, and we're not perfect, and so we need our ability to have a little bit of wiggle room. We have to be sustainable. Today for today is not a priority. Merchandising drives smoothing. This was a little bit of a change management play for us. We literally told everybody, and everybody they work with, the merchants will decide what we balance. You give me the principles, the software will do all the heavy lifting in order of balancing and in order of prioritizing what will and will not be moved around, but it comes from merchandising. They are the kings of our business. Let's make sure that they know that. Let's tell them that in every presentation that we do. If volume exceeds capacity, it will be moved. This is change management point number 2. These principles got sent right to our CEO, and it was as glaringly obvious as possible. When there's more to ship than we have people to move it, we are going to move the volume around. Let's make it clear. Let's be honest with one another, and let's just address the issue. Do what you say you're going to do. Simple one at Walmart we like to live and believe by. We win when everybody benefits. I talked about that in the flow call. No one area can really, truly benefit unless it benefits the whole. So, I'm on my last slide, and then I'm happy to take a couple of questions, but this red thing says I'm over my time already, so we'll see how that goes. If you want to yank me off, feel free as well, by the way. I appreciate that. So, we are in a tactical portion of our journey. We have to get a little more mindful. And so our counterparts in other markets are using the software a little bit more long-term, and we're kind of sharing practices with one another, and we are aligning to what the next 45 days look like. We also believe there's a huge opportunity to be more responsive in how we handle stores. We don't do enough about that right now. And so when we think about where we're going next, the one that I didn't put on there that I thought about on the flight down here was we are always looking at the next layer of the onion. And so I talked to you a little bit about how that truck composition was built, and we know there's not enough trucks for those operators to use, and so they're going out to secure them. How do I tell them about what's on them? And then how do I tell them about the key SKUs that are within that so that they can load plan on the axles better and so on and so forth? That level of granularity, that's really where we want to take the next 6 months of our journey in integrated planning. So, with that, I'll say thank you very much. I'll remind you all that, pardon me? 2 questions, I can handle that. I can handle that, yeah, for sure I can. As long as we don't break any Walmart principles, it's very stringent these guys are. Does anybody brave enough to ask me a question, make me look intelligent up here? I have planted a few questions in case none of you actually randomly put on. Yes, there's my planted question right there. He waited just long enough, so.
In your kind of some of the flow planning you walked through, so like how much are you tracking some of the sell-through from a POS perspective? Is that data used in how you're predicting your demand for this decision?
How do we use it?
Yeah.
Yeah, again, I talked a little bit about Walmart's got an insane amount of data. It's just about laying it out in a way that allows you to tell stories and make decisions quickly. And so sell-through isn't as important to us as one might consider. Promotional sell-through is very important, but we were more worried about the throughput of volume. And so we focused a lot of our data and energy on making sure that our throughput was first and foremost. Sell-through was a lagging indicator telling us whether we were about to see a different trend coming our way. And so I hope that answers your question, but that's basically what we did with that. Anybody else? No, I was so comprehensive. We're all good. That's fantastic. I'll close with this. Number one, please don't take what we say as this is only one way about going about the problem. I appreciated very much to be able to share where I was, because I was at a similar situation in our journey, and I got a lot of great insight from a lot of great people, and there's no one answer to it. And so I encourage you to just keep gathering and collecting and put pieces of everybody's problems and solutions together, and I know you'll find your way through it. So thanks very much for your time, everybody, and take care.